Hey, this is Mikey with another After Effects tutorial. Today we're going to be making this iris. It's made out of shape layers. It's all one layer. You're going to be learning some cool expressions and how to rig something up like this. And I also have it built as a script already, so you can use it that way. Now before we get started, I just want to say it's been a while since I put out a video, and I'm sorry for that, but I've got some new and exciting stuff coming along. I've actually just got back from the NAB show in Vegas and saw some really great stuff, met some cool people, did a presentation for Metal Skybox talking about 360 video. And so some things that we've got coming down the line is, first off, is I picked up one of these. This is the company called SERP, and they have a couple of products, the Genie Mini and the Genie, and I also got the Magic Carpet Slider. And what this does is you can do two things with it. You can do time-lapse photography where the camera moves over time, but you can also use it in video and use it like a motion control rig. And generally, motion control rigs are very expensive. And this is a good price for what it can do. So there's some cool things you could do with cloning and still have some camera movement, doing that in After Effects, and I plan to show you how to use all that. And the next thing is, I've done a review on one of these before, the Beholder, this little handheld SP gimbal for the iPhone, and I was really contemplating getting this MS1, but I just heard it wasn't quite powerful enough for my GH4, and then they came out with this new DS1, and I had to get it. So this is what I've got. I'm going to be using this and showing some cool things you can do with this Beholder. I've just got it. I'm just testing it now. There's lots of cool things, but I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up of some things coming in the future. So let's take a look at this, this shape layer iris I've created. I've made some controls for it. I can open and close it, change the color, determine how many blades, so bring it down to 7, and then the spacing right here. It's how thick you want those lines. And you can see that it's actually cut out. You can see the background behind it. And it's not just a black line. So this is what we're going to build. Let's start with a new composition. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building this, and there's lots of grouping you need to do with this, and you're going to want to have everything in the groups before you start creating your expressions, because if you have the expressions first and then you group things afterwards, it's going to break your expressions and you have to go back and re-link them up properly. So let's create what we need, which is just a rectangle line and a circle to start off with. Let's come in, make sure that's centered for the circle. Let's give that a name. I'm going to just call this center. And we'll call this space because that's the space between the blades. Center that as well. And we can go ahead and delete the stroke on both of those. Okay. Now, let's start to add some groups to these. First, I need to put the rectangle path into its own group. So let's add a group into this space folder and put the path into that. We can go ahead and put the fill in there as well. Now we need to add a group to the main contents. And we're going to add space and center into that main group as well. Okay. That's pretty much all the grouping we have to do, but you need to do that beforehand in order to make sure that the expressions work properly. So let's go into this space. Let's name that space line. Makes it a little easier to understand. And let's start to add some expressions to this. Now the size is what everything's going to be determined on. Not everything, but a lot of things are going to be determined off of this size. So, but before I do that, let's add an effect to this. Let's go down to expression controls and add a slider. And we'll call this line space. I can't remember what I called it in the original one. Let's go back and see. I called it just spacing. And let's set that to 20 up here. And what determines the spacing is in the size of the rectangle path is that first value. This is set at 35.9, but I want it to be determined by that slider. So let's add an expression to the size. So hold down Alt or Option, click on the stopwatch, and then to add the expression, we're going to put in a square bracket, and then let's pick whip to the slider, add a comma, and then let's go like 300, and then a square bracket. Okay, let's go ahead and hide that center. Now what we need to do is change this position based off of that number right there, that 300 number. You know what I want to do? Just in case I want to change this number, I am going to link this to it. So what I'm going to do is add a square bracket, 0, comma, and then let's link to that 300. And then divide that by 2, and then add a square bracket at the end of it. And then what I'm going to do is, instead of putting 300 here, I'm going to type in value, square bracket, 1, square bracket, and that will give me the value of the second thing, whatever I have in here, and I can put 300 there. And so then whatever I change this, see how it automatically sizes it accordingly. Now we need to also change the position down here and the anchor point. And so I want this position to be also based off of that 300. So square bracket, 0, comma, and pick whip that 300. We're not going to divide it by 2. We're just going to leave it at 300. End with a square bracket. And then for the anchor point, let's pick whip that to the position. And what that does is it keeps it where it is, but now the anchor point off of this transform, not on the transform inside of the rectangle, I can rotate right there at the bottom. Pretty cool. Now we need to add a repeater. And the repeater is going to go into this group. See, we've got the group transform right here, and then we've got transform in the group. So let's add a repeater. And as we rotate down here, you can see that's fine. As we rotate down here, we can see that's fine. So that's exactly what we want. Now in the repeater, this is in group 1, we're going to take this position off where it says 100, bring that to 0, and then we want rotation. So it rotates around like that. And what I'm going to do is add another expression in here, and let's go 360 because that's how many degrees there are, divided by the number of copies. Okay, so now as I increase copies, it's going to increase the amount. Now let's add another thing to this where it says spacing. Duplicate that. Blades. Set that to like 5. And then we can go ahead and link the copies down here. I'm going to option click on the stopwatch, pick whip that slider for the blades. Now we do need to add an expression to this, because if I bring this down to 0, it's going to break the expression because I have it divided by a number. See, and that broke that. So let's bring that back to 5. We wanted to make it so it can't go to 0. So we're going to add an if then or if else statement. So right here, this copy, it's based off the blades. So if we go at the beginning, if, and then in parentheses, affect blades slider, if it is greater than 0, and with parentheses. Let's go to the next line, add a curly bracket, and inside the curly bracket is where we're going to have our what's going to happen if it's greater than 0. And if it's greater than 0, then we're going to just display what that is. End with a semicolon, that's important, and with a curly bracket after the semicolon. Next, we put else. So if it's less than 0, or if it is 0, add your curly bracket. Let's do that next line. Else, curly bracket, we want it to display 1. End with a curly bracket. Okay, so now if we go in and put 0 here, see how it adds it to 1. So that's just if you're sliding around with the blades and you accidentally leave it on 0, it won't break the whole thing. Okay, bring that back to 5. So we're done with the repeater. Now what we want to do is we want to add a little bit of curve to this. So in this group, I'm going to add twist and make sure it's before the repeater. You can see how it's twisting like that, but I don't want it to twist like an S shape. I just want it to be one big curve, and that has to do where the center is. See that? So I want that center to be the 300. So that is, again, this number right here. So we go to the center, the size of the rectangle, square bracket 0, comma, and then let's pick whip the 300, end with a square bracket. Okay, and we don't want it that curvy. Probably let's go to -30, should be about fine. And that's about what we're wanting there. Okay. Now let's add another slider to this. And we want this one to be open, close. Let's set that to 50. And so as this goes from 0 to 50, we want this to open and close. And we have to decide, okay, how much rotation do we need to do with this? So let's go into this space line. And what we're going to be rotating is, here we go. I actually had put the repeater in the wrong spot, as I discovered. So this repeater doesn't go inside of this group 1. The repeater actually goes inside the space line group. So let's bring that up there, and as you can see, I'm going to have to reconnect that. So let's bring that repeater down below the group, and if I hit UU, it'll show me all my expressions, and I can go through and I can see that one is the one that's wrong. So since it's in a new group, this is looking somewhere else. So I just need to relink that second part to the copies, and it rewrites the expression, and everything's good. Okay, so now that I have the repeater outside of that group 1, I can come into this group transform, and as I rotate, you can see it's starting to look like an iris. So let's come in here and let's give it, say, 9, so everything connects. We want to be able to make kind of a whole circle, and that's about how big completely open is. So that's -72. Now, in order to make this slide from 0 to 100, making this go from 0 to -72, we're going to use an expression called the linear expression. What the linear expression does is it takes an input and a set of parameters from one number to another, and it remaps it to a different set of parameters. So in rotation, I'm going to add an expression. So option click on the stopwatch. I'm going to type linear. And in parentheses, the first thing I'm going to do is pick whip my input, which is going to be this open close slider. And now I have to define the parameters that it's going to be moving, which I want it to be. So I hit comma 0, comma 100. Now I'm going to, what do I want it to map it to? And I want it from 0 to 100 to actually go from 0 to -72. So let's go comma 0, comma -72. Close the parentheses, and we're done. And as I slide, you can see as I open it up, it opens up like that. Pretty cool. Exactly what I want. Now let's work on the circle. I've got all the blades working. So this center circle here is going to be kind of making this center hole. So let's go all the way down to 0. Let's bring the size down to where it covers it up. And that's probably about 50. Now we go up to 100. And it's going to need to go up to, let's go 690. Might as well go full 700. So we're going to do the same thing, the linear expression. So option click on the stopwatch, type in linear, in parentheses. Let's first pick whip that slider, comma 0, comma 100, comma, remember this one, this small one was 50, comma 700, close parentheses. And now it's given me an error. And why that error is because I just realized size is looking for 2 variables, and I'm only feeding it 1. Even though I want them both to be the same for the scale, the x and y, I'm only giving it 1 variable, and so it's giving me an error. So I'm just going to type in temp for a temporary variable, end that with a semicolon, and then do a square bracket, temp, comma, temp, and then end with a square bracket, and then that should fix that. And then what we got going on here is it's going to scale at the same rate. Now you can see it's not quite where it needs to be right there, so I can come in and where that says 700, let's say that 720, and I can start to kind of build this up a little bit. Maybe we started at 60 instead. Let's see what that looks like at the bottom. Yep. Let's go 725. I just don't want any of the little corners. So you can, there's a little corner just popping up right there. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, now that we have all of this mechanics pretty much set, we need to use some merging to make sure that everything works good. So in this group, we've got the center and we've got the space line. So group 1, we're going to add to this a merge paths. Let's go ahead and delete the stroke. And under merge paths, we're going to have it be at merge. Now what we need to do is we need to cut it out and reverse the whole thing. So let's, to this contents, not in the group 1, but just in the main folder, we're going to add another circle. Let's make sure that is centered. Go into the ellipse transformation and under position, 0 it out. And we can go ahead and get rid of that stroke as well. And we can put this down below. And I'm going to duplicate that again. Now this top one, I'm going to take the scale of it and bring it down so it's smaller. Okay. Now let's add some merge paths to this. Select contents, go in, add merge paths, and let's put this one between the 2 ellipses. Actually, I'm going to hide that second ellipse for now. And under mode, we're going to do intersect, and you can see how it creates kind of what we're looking for, but just the opposite. Now let's go in, duplicate that merge path again, stick it at the bottom. Let's turn on this second, and instead of intersect, we're going to go to exclude intersections. And then here we have a basic iris or an aperture. Now if we wanted to go in and add to this so we can change the color, that's just easy enough. Let's go into expression controls, add the color control, and then we have this fill down at the bottom. We're going to link that to the color control. And we can save that. Awesome. So let's test all of these things. So blades, let's bring that down to 7. Works good. Spacing. Works good. Open, close. Works good. Now you can see here, now that I have this little rim on it, I don't need to have it go quite as open. So you see here, after I get to about 81%, everything's kind of off. So what I need to do is I can go into those 2 linear expressions and fix that. Because I want this to be, I don't want the last 20% to be useless. So let's go back into, this was in group 1, first into the center. Under ellipse path, we have this linear expression right here, and we're at 603. So all I have to do, it's probably actually 600 would work too, is this second one. Let's go 600. And then let's go to the line spacing, and under rotation, you can see we're at 58.8, and that's supposed to be negative 72. So let's go 58.9, and that looks pretty good now. Opens up all the way when it gets to 100. Now, one thing we have here is when this line spacing is smaller instead of bigger, you can see that it creates a circle in the center that we don't want. So to do that, we're going to go into this linear expression again. And when this is at 20, then it's looking, well, let's see. Right there at 30, the spacing at 30, that spacing is at 60. So it's looking like it's 2 times. So let's take that in the linear expression of the ellipse path, and the beginning one, 60, we're going to highlight that, pick whip, spacing of 30, and then divide that, and then times that by 2. Now as we bring this down, that circle, the beginning size should work just perfect. Okay, so that is creating an iris. Now, since this is all in one shape layer, what we can do is, let's come in here, is if I highlight the contents and the effects, I can go to animation and save that as an animation preset. I can bring it back. I've also made this as a script. And so in order to run this as a script, let's go ahead and create a new composition just so we can see. File, scripts, run script file. You're going to find the file and open that up, and it'll build it up automatically. And the script's compatible with CS6 and above. Now, to create this script file, I'm actually beta testing a new script that's created by, he goes by Render Tom. He's created some awesome scripts. Slice it up, bookmarker, vertex tool. These are very good scripts, and I recommend checking it out. And he's got a new one called compCode, which basically it will take your composition and turn it into a JavaScript file. Now, as I'm recording this video, it's not quite out yet, or I'd show you it, but it's coming out very soon. And in an upcoming video, I'm going to show you all about it, how to use it, and all that it can do. It's a really cool script. So just stay tuned for that. But I have made this script for this iris using that tool, and I'm going to give that out for free, the script. So included with this video, there's a download. All you have to do is go click over the link, and you can download the script for free. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. There's a lot of information in this one about grouping and shape layers and expressions, but it ends up creating a really kind of a cool look. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.